Hi, and welcome to He Has Answers, a completely free online ministry resource that, while still very much under construction, contains more than enough information to help you come to know the God who made you, knows you, loves you, and whom wants you to come and know Him so you may be saved and have everlasting life. In this series of videos, we'll be reading through a downloadable PDF file of an unfinished free ebook titled He Is, the Truth That God Exists, and the Thorough Investigation of Undeniable Proofs, so that you can see that beyond a reasonable doubt, God is real and the Holy Bible is His Word. If you'd like a copy of this PDF file for yourself, it can be downloaded here by right-clicking this link and saving the link as is in a folder on your own personal computer or even in your mobile device. Now let's begin. Hi, and welcome back to the reading of the free ebook, He Is. One benefit of being able to listen to audio rather than read through a book is that you can still follow along with the message even while carrying on with whatever else you might be doing in your day. So I invite you to do just that. First, let's pray. God, please give me a soft and humble heart as I listen. Please open my eyes and my ears and change my spirit so I may know you and worship you in spirit and in truth. We are in part 3. The devil is real and he wants you to go to hell. He can make people disabled. Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and behold, there was a woman who had had a disabling spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not fully straighten herself. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said to her, "Woman, you are freed from your disability." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God. But the ruler of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said to the people, "There are 6 days in which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day." Then the Lord answered him, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to water it? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath day?" As he said these things, all his adversaries were put to shame, and all the people rejoiced at all the glorious things that were done by him. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 13, verses 10 to 17. The scriptures don't mince words here. The disability of this woman was caused by a demon of Satan, and by the authority of the Word of God, she was healed and made free. Is part of our problem with this belief not just that we don't want to acknowledge God, but also that we find the idea of real demons involving themselves in our lives uncomfortable? Whichever it is, even if it's both, we must come to a right understanding of what is going on in our world so that we can best combat it. He can cause epilepsy. Before we look at a passage linking epilepsy and the seizures it causes to demonic attack, let's first look at a verse which categorically separates epilepsy from demonic oppression. This would indicate to us that assuredly epilepsy can be wholly physiological. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, epileptics and paralytics, and he healed them. The Gospel of Matthew chapter 4, verse 24. That passage does not seem to imply that all sick who are afflicted by a variety of diseases and pain, as well as epileptics and paralytics, are this way due to oppression by demons. The text appears to be separating all of these conditions from each other. In the following passage, though, we shall see that one individual's epileptic seizures are definitely being caused by the intrusion of a demonic entity. And when they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them, and scribes arguing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" And someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him. And when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said to him, If you can, all things are possible for one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out with tears and said, I believe, help my unbelief. And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy was like a corpse, so that most of them said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. The Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 14 to 27. It cannot be denied that the above passage clearly specifies that an evil spirit was what was causing the boy's epileptic seizures, and it's God who commanded the evil spirit to depart and never enter him again. Tragically, in this day and age, we are adamant that such neurological conditions are purely natural and waste both the time of doctors and technicians and years of a person's life while numbing their brain with psychiatric drugs. All the while, it's only reliance on God which is the treatment for some of these instances. I can't help but be reminded of the barrage of medical and psychiatric treatments the girl goes through in The Exorcist, while the real cure was completely avoided. Yes, even the entire procedure of the exorcism they performed was a farce when looked at through a biblical lens. Do you recall, my dear friend, in the so-called leap of faith, where I urged you to call out to God just like this father did for the Lord to help your unbelief? I can promise you that God will respond just as he does in the above passage. It's interesting that the Greek word for epilepsy is selenizomai, and means someone is epileptic or said to be moonstruck or a lunatic. It was once believed that a person's mental well-being could be influenced by the moon, hence why we see the Latin word luna. Luna was another name for Artemis, the moon goddess. As we now know, false gods are demonic in origin. How fitting then that we have this association of a moon goddess to lunacy, as demons are fully capable of affecting our mental, read, spiritual health. When we look at the complexity of the brain, it being a gateway to the spiritual, if a person was to come under intense demonic attack through the mind, as seen in Mark chapter 9, it is undoubtedly possible that a person would go into convulsions while their mind was being overloaded. Think even to what we see portrayed by Hollywood. We've got movies like The Matrix, where abilities and information are downloaded en masse into a person's mind, causing them to have tremors. Overstimulation of the brain, such as virtualizing death in The Matrix, caused even more severe convulsions. This seems relatable to the condition of mania, where a person's mind is on overdrive and they require antipsychotics to tranquilize the brain. A spiritual being could surely cause that sort of stress on a person's mind, perhaps by inputting thoughts or information that brought them to hyperexcitability, nearing the point of debilitation. I bring this up not just to tie this segment together, but also because a very notable man in history who was a false prophet allegedly had severe seizures at the times when he would receive his supposed revelations from an angelic being. His mind was filled with a great deal of information, and being overwhelmed, he would collapse as if epileptic. These prophecies purported to be final revelations from God, were completely contradictory to the true revelation from God, going as far as to say that Jesus Christ was not divine and did not die for anyone's sins, totally eradicating the gospel and our only hope for salvation. The man's revelation exchanged the good news of God's finished work at the cross for pardon and forgiveness through works and faith alone, which we already know cannot justify and pay our sin debt. Now, what enemy of God and man would want to spread such a lie? Why, the devil, of course. I don't for a second doubt the sincerity of this man's visions or any convulsive fits that may or may not have accompanied them, but the information delivered, regardless of how supernaturally transported, was a disastrous satanic lie. As well, like we've already covered, psychiatric drugs that work to dull the brain could therefore serve as an impediment for a person being able to relate to God spiritually through their mind. For the devil to first attack a person and then deceive our medical professionals to prescribe tranquilizing pharmaceuticals, which may serve his purposes of blinding people from being able to accept the gospel, is, spiritually speaking, a real 1-2 punch. However, I still believe that if God does not heal a person from epilepsy caused by physiological reasons, and they must remain on medication, He's more than powerful enough to connect with them spiritually, if only they are humble enough to seek Him and ask, "Help my unbelief." For those who are being fed medication in an effort to combat epilepsy caused by a demonic assault, God can surely deliver them through prayer and fasting, just as Jesus would tell His disciples in the 29th verse of Mark chapter 9. There is then only one way to truly find out which cause is behind a person's affliction: seeking the Lord while praying and fasting and humbly asking Him to heal you and or free you so you can best serve Him. Then, according to His infinite wisdom, He'll decide how to respond. He can make people mute. We've already seen in the passage about the demon-possessed boy who was having seizures that an evil spirit can make someone mute. But here's another account to confirm that the boy's muteness was not a result of epilepsy, but that a person can be made mute apart from epilepsy. As they were going away, behold, a demon-oppressed man who was mute was brought to him. And when the demon had been cast out, the mute man spoke. The crowds marveled, saying, "Never was anything like this seen in Israel." The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9, verses 32 and 33. Without reservation, the text plainly states that this man was demon-oppressed. He wasn't suffering from selective mutism, which is a condition affecting children in some adolescents. This is where they feel anxious in certain situations, and timidity keeps them from being able or willing to speak. The cause of this man's muteness was not simply anxiety or timidity, although we hopefully now understand that the devil and his forces can exacerbate such problems in a person's life. Jesus did not go up to a man, speak tenderly and reassuringly to him, make him feel welcome, and coax him to speak for the first time in a long time. Otherwise, the text would not report that the crowds marveled, saying, "Never was anything like this seen in the whole nation of Israel." Certainly, by that point in Israel's history, someone had convinced a nervous person to talk when they'd been reluctant to do so for some time. There's nothing to marvel at there. No, something incredible and obviously supernatural occurred here. Why was it so meaningful to the Jewish people? Don't worry, my friend. We will be covering this later on, and it is simply amazing. Thanks for listening to this video, and I hope that it blesses you. Please do share it with others so they may have the opportunity to understand this incredible truth. Be blessed.